Burkina Faso is burning figuratively and in some places quite literally, and President Ruto thinks he knows what is wrong.
We are called to reflect on our long and determined journey towards a just, democratic, representative, and effective international order.
From the UN stage in New York, Ruto did what's quickly becoming his trademark: speak not just for Kenya, but for an entire continent.
We must stand united in defending the common African position. To deviate from or dilute it would betray the trust of the very people that elected us. Unity is our greatest strength, and in one voice we must uphold this position with unwavering clarity.
In a sweeping speech that covered everything from Sudan's civil war to the dusty chaos of the Sahel, Ruto positioned himself as Africa's moral compass, and maybe even its crisis consultant.
Madam President, you can count on Kenya's full support throughout your tenure as you steer the Assembly into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, 8 years ago, in the aftermath of the unprecedented global destruction and devastating war, the international community came together in hope. They created this organization, the United Nations.
He condemned the fighting in Sudan, slammed global inaction, then pivoted to the Sahel region with the smoothness of a career diplomat.
We joined the Guard in urging all parties, including SAF, RSF, and the external actors, to respect Sudan's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity, and firmly reject any attempts to divide the country, reaffirming our unwavering support for a unified Sudan for the benefit of all its people.
According to Ruto, the region is a triple threat zone, torn apart by terrorism, battered by climate change, and suffocating under weak governance. His solution: international cooperation, reformed global systems, and deeper pockets to help Africa adapt, secure, and survive.
Too often, the UN's blue helmet, once a symbol of moral authority, no longer commands the same respect. From the conflicts in Gaza to Ukraine, to the crisis in Sudan, DRC Congo, Somalia, and the Sahel, we see actors proceed undeterred by the United Nations calls. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Kenya speaks from the experience of a nation deeply invested in multilateralism. Every institution, no matter how noble its origins or impactful its legacy, must adapt to changing times or slide into irrelevance. Today, the United Nations stands at a crossroads of renewal on one hand or decay on another. Put differently, after 80 years, the rhymes of time are calling on us to reimagine the original promise that inspired the founding of the United Nations, and that is the quest for global peace, development, and human rights. But this call must now be answered in a global context that is profoundly different from the post-war era in which the UN was conceived then. We would be denying the cold, hard truth if we say that the United Nations is delivering as it should. On peace and security, its voice is too often drowned by the rivalries of great powers, while some nations simply ignore its resolutions and do as they please. The mismatch between shareholders and stakeholders has become starkly visible. For instance, during the IMF's recent allocation of special drawing rights, 64% went to wealthy nations. Just imagine, 64%. With little need for liquidity support. They didn't need the money anyway, but they got 64%. While the poorer countries received just 2.4%. What a disconnect. The imbalance highlights how the very institutions meant to safeguard global finance stability often perpetuate inequality and instability. We declared Africa not just as a victim of the crisis, but as a source of solutions, with climate action driving economic growth, transformation, and job creation for our communities. Ambition, ladies and gentlemen, cannot stand on willpower alone. Implementing our new NDCs will require $56 billion. That is why we call on the global community to unlock the $300 billion agreed at Baku and to accelerate negotiations towards the new $1.3 trillion goal under the Baku-Belém roadmap. Without affordable finance and without reform of the international financial architecture, the promise of climate action in Africa will remain constrained.
No names were dropped, but let's not kid ourselves. When someone says Sahel, the political imagination skips straight to Burkina Faso. And when someone says Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore isn't far behind.
Merci beaucoup, camarades, et bonjour à tous.
The Sahel, stretching from Mali to Mauritania, is the unofficial testing lab for post-colonial rebellion. Military takeovers in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have recast strongmen as saviors. Pan-African slogans are flying, French flags are burning, and juntas are treating multilateral institutions like expired contracts. And yet, for all the bravado, these regimes are neck-deep in chaos. Reports show the region now accounts for 51% of global terrorism-related deaths, up from 48% just last year. Insurgent groups like JNIM and ISGS are running wild in vast ungoverned spaces. Roads are death traps, schools are closed, gold, uranium, and oil fields are up for grabs, not just by corporations, but by armed groups claiming divine authority. These military regimes, especially Traore's in Ouagadougou, have long claimed that foreign powers, especially France, are either sponsoring or tolerating terror to maintain economic control.
When I take the case of Burkina, these armies were present and it contributed to weakening the Burkinabe army. We no longer recruited, they were the ones who decided how many to recruit. There was no more weaponry, equipment and everything. Even in the 1985, under Sankara, we were better equipped than 10, 20 years later. And finally, terrorism came in. When terrorism arrived, we didn't have an army. We are still suffering from it today.
Burkina Faso rejects interference from foreign powers, prioritizing sovereignty and independence in its dealings. In terms of security, Burkina Faso condemns Ukraine's support for terrorism in the Sahel region. Burkina Faso also rejects France's interference, highlighting its distinct and positive relationship with Russia. The government stresses that countries in the region are taking control of their destinies, moving away from dependence on foreign powers.
It is a potent narrative. Fight imperialism, take back sovereignty, crush the jihadists. Only the last part isn't really working. Now Ruto, with a suit, a microphone and a pitch, he didn't name Burkina Faso or Mali or Niger, but his speech made it clear. Africa's internal fires can't be put out without external help. He is calling for global financing, institutional reforms, and coordinated security strategies.
That the current global financial architecture punishes poor countries with high interest rates and enormous conditionalities, while rewarding rich nations with lower interest rates and softer lending rates. Its rules, priorities, and allocation mechanisms consistently favor those already prosperous, while trapping vulnerable economies in cycles of debt, high borrowing costs, and inadequate access to emergency support and concessional funding.
Essentially, he is offering the toolbox. But the question is, will Traore and company even let him through the door? After all, the Sahel's new rulers didn't overthrow governments just to take advice from a UN quoting IMF-friendly East African president. Their entire political brand is built on rejecting outside influence, even when they are in a desperate need of it.
Beyond economic cooperation, Burkina Faso is focused on information control and sovereignty. The country aims to partner with trusted allies like Russia to avoid dependence on adversaries. Burkina Faso rejects interference from foreign powers, prioritizing sovereignty and independence in its dealings.
So, should Burkina Faso trust Ruto's vision? Maybe he's not France, he's not the UN, he's not dropping troops or drones, but he is walking into a region that is fiercely defensive, politically charged, and already allergic to outside solutions. Still, Ruto is playing the long game. His message to the Sahel's strong men: you can wave flags and fight colonizers, but eventually you will need real partners to keep the lights on and the bullets out. Whether that partner is Kenya or Ruto himself, nobody knows.